How are you doing out there? And thank you so much for tuning in this morning. I have a great show for you guys. I have Dan McCrory on the show today. And when I tell you I am so excited, I am so excited. Dan, I feel like I know you, like we really know each other. And this is our first time actually seeing each other and meeting.
Yeah,
And
we've been talking a while.
well, we've been talking a while, but I am so glad that you're here on the show today. And you are a very interesting man. When I read over your bio, I was very enthused to say the least, because one thing I said when I started this show, I said, now I don't want to talk anything politics, anything religion, because I just don't want to do it, right? But when I actually read over your bio, I was like, I feel as if he has a lot of information that people can just benefit from. So I appreciate you being a part of my platform today.
Um, Appreciate it too. Thank you very much, Carol.
You're welcome. Now, I know a little bit about you, but my audience does not. And I know you're a progressive labor activist, right? You're an author. You've also you also have done several things when it comes to running races for political seats. So tell me a little bit about you, so my audience will know.
Well, I grew up poor in the small town of Texas. Was on the wrong side of the tracks, and I got the opportunity to expand my education, move out of that little town, and live with my grandmother in Denver. So I went to
Hmm.
high school in Denver, and eventually, well, that's a long story, but when I
Hmm.
got to California, I got really tapped into the labor movement, and they started dragging me around to all these political events, and I walked precincts for candidates, and really got to know these people as people, and really, I realize we do have some say so in the world. We just have to take advantage of it.
Right. I think your audio is kind of going out a little bit.
Sorry.
That's okay. I know that you said how the communication is a little bit, but can you repeat the very last thing you were saying? You kind of went out a little bit on us.
My union started getting me involved in politics, and they would have me walk precincts and phone bank for different candidates, and I got to know them as people, which makes a big difference when you go to their office and want something.
Oh, I can imagine. Just like I say, you and I, it could have been all starched and that type of thing, but no, we feel like we kind of know each other, so it makes the conversation a lot more smoothly, to talk and actually get to the nuts of everything. So now, I understand you've written a book about capitalism and how
Yeah.
yeah, and how it ruined the middle class. Killed is your title. But tell me a little bit about that, and about what drove you to write that book. I know you worked for AT&T for 37 years or so. Was that something that catapulted you into it? Capitalism killed the middle class.
Yeah, what I did was it started out as a memoir, and I realized who's going to buy this book? Who knows me? So I
Hmm.
thought I need to mix in some other things. So I decided it was going to be sort of a love letter or a tale of caution for the
Hmm.
next generation. I realized that they need to know what they're facing as far as issues that we face today and issues coming down the pike for them, such as the gig economy, universal basic income, all those kinds of things. And um, it seems to be a pretty popular book. So I must
Okay.
be with somebody.
It's absolutely me, even because, like I said, I was like, no politics, none of that stuff, but it intrigued me. So you stated the system is rigged. Can you kind of go into that a little bit for my audience?
Well, the subtitle of the book is 25 Ways, and I recently did a book signing of all places in Yuma, Arizona, which is Trump country, and
Mm-hmm.
those people said only 25, and I said, look how thick the book is. It wasn't going to get any thinner if I kept on going, so I
Right.
was to 25, and it's everything from healthcare to education. All those areas were limited by um, where you live, who you are, maybe even what color your skin is, as
Mm-hmm.
far as your opportunities and your the basic way you live, because the rich don't have anything to do with us. They have their own world where they're protected from people like us.
Right. So I know that we're going to backtrack a little bit. I know that you stated that you worked for AT&T for 37 years or so. Did you run into a lot of issues there, and that kind of what kind of like made you realize, okay, because as a young man back in the day, we all want to get a job, we want to work, retire, buy a home, do get a little bit of the American pie here and there. So did what exactly said made you feel, outside of wanting to leave this information for people, what made you want to write this book? Did you experience some things particularly at your employment while you were employed?
Not so much. Actually ended up becoming president of my union, and as such, I was able to intervene on behalf of working folks, because
Okay.
they didn't. For instance, when I first became president, I saw that a lot of people were being fired and laid off for all sorts of really
Right.
insane that never occurred before. So I saw this trend that was a bad trend as far as working people go, and I wanted to try to head some of that off, if not all of it. And so that's why I got involved, and that's the reason I stay involved.
Right, because of course, with most people who have children and that type of thing, that sort of information is important so they
Yeah,
can learn how to maneuver through life essentially,
exactly.
because like you said, depending on where you live, we all know the color of your skin is a huge, just initially sometimes it's a deficit depending on what you're trying to do.
People will use anything as an excuse to keep other people down.
Mhm. Mhm. Do you find that that happens? What experiences have you? Because you're what we would consider, as, African American, like someone that's on a more privileged side. Have you had any friends or anything that you've seen where they have had this experience?
Yes, I've seen it all too often, especially growing up in Texas, because as I
Oh
mentioned,
yeah.
I lived on the wrong side of the tracks. They actually called it End Town, and
Mhm. Mhm.
that's the way Texas is. They
Right.
just consider it another adjective. So,
Right. Right.
but a lot of that, and my stepfather, I should say, got really upset when I started having black friends, because he had always considered himself one step above the bottom, and all of a sudden he was right down there in the bottom with everybody else, and he
Mhm.
couldn't handle that.
Right. Do you think that life is about who you know. Like even with us, as you can be an educated. I'm educated. I have a degree and all of that type of thing. But I always try to tell my children, people still have to like you when you're going out and you're trying to move around and do certain things. Do you have that experience too? Um,
Yeah,
or have you had that experience?
yeah. I recently got involved with the lefty radio station here in LA, and they asked me to build their community advisory board. So
Hmm.
pulled in favors and got people involved. And I realized that all of a sudden that I knew they get money from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and Public Radio and TV. So I found out that I knew the CEO, and I knew where to get
Hmm.
from one of the local tribes. And all of a sudden I was being treated with respect because I had all these
Right.
connections.
Hmm.
Oh, and now I'm moving on to the next step with the station, and I keep getting more and more responsibilities, which is a good thing, but it'll probably eventually kill me because I'm doing too much.
Well, we pray not, because you're full of
Yeah,
knowledge and information. We need you to stay around.
thanks.
Absolutely. Now, when we talk about the economics, we know realistically it's more difficult for some races and classes of people to get ahead. Can we talk a little bit about that and what you go into your book explaining?
Yeah, I've actually got a chapter called "The American Caste System," because even though it's not as bad as India, where you're stuck there for your whole life, there's still very little mobility, and that's controlled from up above. And I don't mean God; I mean the
Mm-hmm.
and the wealthy, because they only let a few of us move up the ladder. And I want to do everything I can to sort of to balance the scale so that it can be like we were told when we were kids, that if you work hard, you can actually achieve something and move up that ladder. And
Right.
it's rigged, like I said.
Hmm. Now I know, even when I know it always can be a race type thing, but also I feel as if it's an age type thing too. Like a lot of people that as they become older, they're kind of like merged out of jobs. Do you see, being the position that you were in at your company, did you see a lot of that happening?
Yeah. Luckily,
It
we had
wasn't once like that. I'm sorry to interrupt. Once at one time it wasn't like that. You can work and retire and go on and travel, but and that it kind of took a turn.
yeah, I do some of that. But yeah, you're right. I saw a lot of that, and but luckily we had a union to sort of protect us. Otherwise, you're right.
Hmm.
You're tossed aside like a tool that doesn't work anymore.
Right. And then do you think a lot of it is economics, or do you think it's because they feel like you're older and, we want to bring in a younger, more, energized person who's not going to get sick as much, not going to call out? Or do you just think it's all economics?
I think it's a bit of both. I've actually encountered that in the National Writers Union. I was recording secretary. I took the minutes for all our meetings for 16 years. And the president came to me and said, it's time to step aside for some new blood. And I asked
Mm.
him and I said, well, you should go too, because he's older than I am. But uh, he didn't like that.
Yeah, he
But
didn't like that, right?
right, but I found another way I could be useful to the union. I'm now head of the book division for the National Writers Union, and that means that we put on seminars for people to learn more about the whole publishing world and things like that. So I did
Mhm.
find that I could stay relevant, and
Well,
frankly,
good.
I wrote the book was to stay relevant.
But that doesn't happen very often, of course.
No, unfortunately not, because people.
Unfortunately, yeah.
I've fought hard for what I've learned and experienced, and I think there's a lesson there for people coming up the behind me, and that stuff can't be lost. It needs to be passed on.
What type of information do you put in, or have you put in your book that kind of encourages the people coming into the working world now?
I talked to them about the way things are right now, about this whole Michelle Alexander, very good writer. She wrote about the new Jim Crow, and she talked about how they have this pipeline that goes from kindergarten to prison, and
Hmm.
for a lot of people, that's the only path they have, and it's some.
Uh-oh, I think you're freezing.
How can you aim for something if you can't see the target?
I'm sorry, we lost you for a minute, Dan. You kind of
So I
froze. Could you restate what you were saying? Your internet is going in and out a little bit.
okay, what I said was that there's. I read a recent thing from a gentleman who said that if people can't see the target, how do they know where to aim? So I think mentorship is really important,
Hmm.
and some of what I offer too is some mentoring to avoid some of those obstacles that are going to arise because of uh, different perceived. There's I talk I have a TikTok channel also on there. I
Okay.
talked about a thing that they used to call eugenics, where they
Hmm.
said people are in powerful positions because they come from a better stock, which is as we know baloney. But there are actually people out there who believe that.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of wealth is generational, you know.
Yes,
You just, if you come in the world of Trump, you definitely, have a little edge. You know what I'm saying? It's
yes.
not just the average person. So definitely the stock is important, I think. Um, how important do you kind of help navigate people of my race around in your book, to kind of say, okay, because we know it's always an uphill battle most times for us. Do you
Yeah,
kind of not have anything dedicated in your book for, towards our race? Because I know you speak about Black Lives Matter. That you kind of talked about that. Do you think any sort of correlation? Do you think is something that's coming along, like just in time, or is it a lot kind of late?
There's a lot that's really, really late. I think if Dr. King was alive today, he'd say, I worked so hard and this is all you've got.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many travesties that still need to be addressed. And,
Right.
or, but until white people realize that the problem is us, it's not going to change.
Right. I mean, we all know the man with the money make the rules. That's just kind of how it's been, and that's how it's always been. And unfortunately, I don't see it changing anytime soon because money, if you have money, you just have an easier pathway, you know?
Yep.
That's just kind of how it is. So you just kind of have to make your own path. You
Yeah.
know, do you
And
think it's an I'm sorry, you're going out.
sorry, it helps to have people in your corner, though. To what I always say is, I think there's a quote somewhere that says, "We stand on the shoulders of giants."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That absolutely helps. I agree with you on that. Um, how do you feel about people who are actually trying to they graduate from college, okay, then they want to go out and get this job. They spend all this money in financial aid, and they owe so much money back to the government, and now they have to get a job that's not even paying. They'll be forever, they'll probably be dead, but they still have student loans. How do you feel about that? Do you think something should be done about that type of system?
Yeah, somewhere along the line, we went from a system that where we searched for grants and free money, so to speak. And
Mm-hmm.
it's now become more of a capitalist model, which is why I think capitalism is killing us. That's because
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden we're on this like a rat on a treadmill, and
Mm-hmm.
you're right, it's never ending, and we have to move back to the model where we're investing in our youth and helping with a leg up or something.
How do you feel? I know it's kind of digressing a second, but I'm just curious on your thoughts on this. How do you feel about the Bitcoin and all of that that's kind of coming in to kind of change the way we deal with the fiat money? How do you feel about that?
I think it's a workaround certain institutions like banks and things like that. And if it fails, it's going to fail spectacularly. And if it is successful, same thing. It's going to be spectacular. It's going to change the world. Myself, I don't know enough about it to actually. I haven't invested or anything. I just keep my ear to the ground and find out
That's
what
me.
it is. Yeah.
Right,
So,
that's me.
yeah, exactly.
I'm kind of scared. I'm like, ugh. I know a lot of people who do get into that, but I'm just kind of like, I'm a kind of sit back and watch kind of person. You know, I
Right.
got to kind of see, and that's not good for investing, by the way. You got to get in early, but I'm like I'm not with that, but it seems like it's kind of taken off in some sort of way, but I don't know, it's almost like one of those things where, everyone is doing it, everyone wants to do it, but I'm more conservative with
Me
my
too.
approach. So
Yeah.
I think for now I'm going to stick with that.
What's
Um,
all right? I
I'm
actually
sorry.
in the 80s, I invested in an airline, and because the airlines didn't go under, and
Hmm.
they're
Hmm.
probably at the bottom. And I thought this is a good time to invest in this. But sure enough, they went under, and I lost $5,000. So that's why I'm a little reluctant to jump in big time with Bitcoin.
Right, you definitely can't invest more than you're willing to lose. You got to kind of stay, and you got to be a long-term investor. Investing is not, especially stocks and things like that. It fluctuates so much, But you do have to. I know one thing for sure: you got to buy it low and sell it high, or just sit
Exactly.
and ride the wave. One of the two. I think you're from. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, a whole lot of ways. I agree about that. Now you also wrote another book. You will forever be my always. Can you tell me a little bit about that book? And that book it seems to be very successful. Am I correct? You won an award for it. Okay, then you kind of going in and out. You're freezing on me.
Uh, sorry. I hope
That's
it's fine.
okay. I understand. You told me initially.
Yeah. Okay.
Uh oh.
For is sort of my story.
Dan, can you
It's
hear
my
me?
COVID novel. I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. Okay, you're freezing, so we're not getting your whole story.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I think it's and you were coming through really clear, and then it started freezing.
Yeah, it's
I'm trying
horrible
to.
around here. We're up against the mountains, so there really isn't a lot they can do about it.
Right. So yeah, you
Anyway,
told me that. So tell me a little bit about we couldn't hear anything that you just stated. Tell me about your book, You Will Forever Be My Always. That's a totally, from what I understand, it's totally different from your first book. Am I correct?
that is correct. A COVID novel. We're in lockdown. I didn't have anything else to do, and this book
Mm-hmm.
just poured. And the first book 2 years. This one took 4 months, and it's about a
Oh
guy
wow.
who cheats on his wife, ignores his friends until he finds out he has Parkinson's disease, and then he figures he's dying, so he's going to try to make amends so he can go to the good place.
Oh, oh
Ends up
wow.
going to Thailand, talks to a monk, a Buddhist monk, and also a Catholic
Mm-hmm.
priest. Then he goes to Morocco, talks to Jews and Muslims, and then he decides he's going to fix things is to go back and town that he grew up in Texas.
I think you're frozen. Dan, if you hear me, you're frozen. We cannot hear you at all on our end. Your signal is real low. I think Dan's having a little audio trouble, so just bear with us. I think he's going to try to reconnect. But thank you guys for tuning in today. We are having a really good conversation with Dan. He's full of information. He's going to go, when he comes back into the interview, he's going to pick up and tell us about his new book. He has done very well with that particular book. Here he comes. Hold on one second. Hi, Dan.
Next, it didn't work
Hey,
all that well.
I hear you.
I tried.
That's okay. I hear you. Can you hear me? I can hear you now. You're kind of freezing a little bit, but it's better, a little better signal. Tell- See if you tell us a little bit about your book. I don't think it's.
So you didn't pick up anything before?
Okay. Can you hear me? Your signal is just really weak. That's okay. I understand. We just can't hear you.
Okay.
No, you just now I can hear you a little bit, but you're freezing a lot.
Yeah, same here. Okay.
Yeah.
Did you hear anything?
I know you spoke about
Earlier?
the book, and you stated it was a man that cheated on his wife, and he found out he had Parkinson's disease, and so he wanted to go around and make everything better because he wanted to make it into the good place, which is heaven, and that's where we kind of lost you.
Yeah.
I think you're in a little better now, so let's go ahead and talk about it really quick.
Okay. Yeah, so he tries to make amends with all these people that he feels like he tore up their lives and things like that. So he tries to make it up to ends to get back in the good graces of his wife. And I'm not going to tell the ending because I buy it. It's available form you can imagine, including auto.
Okay, so if someone wanted to get the book, where can they purchase it at?
Anywhere, but
Okay.
the usual places, Noble and
Amazon.
Amazon, are good places all over.
Okay, Amazon and that type thing. Okay, unfortunately, I hate that we're having such problems with the audio. Um, it's kind of frustrating. That's okay. It's nothing
Yeah,
you can do about it. You live in the mountains. Who wouldn't want to live in the mountains? I mean, near the mountains, rather. That, but this is
exactly.
one of the, we know how technology is. Got to have that clear signal.
Yeah.
But what would you like to leave my audience with today?
Well, that's a good question that nobody's ever asked me before. Like to, even if you, despite the fact that this book is kind of a downer because it talks about Parkinson's disease and how it eventually gets worse because there's still a lot of humor in it. And in your own
Okay.
life, you got to look for the bright side. You got to, I think Monty Python said, look for the bright side of life. And that's what we have to do. We have to realize that this too shall pass. Whether it's a good thing happening to us or a bad thing happening to us, this too shall pass and something will come along to replace it.
Well, it's called life. We don't know. No one knows what tomorrow's going to bring. But while you're living in the day, you want to make it the best today as possible. So
Exactly.
that's what I say. Well, Dan, I thank you so much for being on the show. I know we had the little technical difficulty. I wanted it to be a little longer interview, but now it looks like you're clear. Something doesn't want me to let you go. You're coming now. You're coming in really clear. So let me ask you this really quick before. How did your book get selected at the festival to win an award? Maybe we can get that in really quick.
Okay, because I entered in something called a wild slot, there I beat out about 13 people for that win, but I decided that my book didn't really comfortably fit within a genre.
Okay.
I call it romance.
It's freezing again. You're completely frozen now. We're completely frozen. So, okay. All right, we're gonna let Dan sign Dan out. I think the technical difficulties on his side is impacting the interview, but we actually anyway, if you want to find out more about Dan, you can actually like he said, his books are on pretty much any format you would be interested in. You could go to Amazon. I'm assuming he has it where you can hear the audio, or you can do the ebooks, whatever. But look him up. The correct spelling of his name is Dan, Dan McCrory, McCory, and you'll be able to go and Google him and find out more information on him. All right. Thank you so much. And I appreciate Dan for being here. And again, Dan, MCCO. Let me start over. MCCRORY. That's MCCRORY. Make sure you have that correct. All right. Thank you so much. We apologize for the audio trouble we were having today. Enjoy the rest of your day.